still decorating a little bit, just more of the like touches, paintings and stuff like that.
And where is it?
Right next to Doodles.
Okay.
So we're facing 3rd Street. We're 110 East 3rd, but literally next door to Doodles Restaurant.
Yeah.
So there's like a little alley you can park behind our building, but so there's an entrance in the back and as well as the front.
It's cool. It's kind of a mix of traditional and modern.
It is.
It's got a lot of
So
modern
David Helmers had
features.
owned it, and the original building was built in 1900. But when he bought it in 07, he put an addition on the back that Paul Rosa Pohl, the architect firm, did, and they did a fabulous job. They really pulled the wood, the old wood, into the new part, but it's also pretty modern.
I'm just thinking of the weight loss plan I'd have to be on working across the
That's true.
Like,
Oh my gosh, when I
it's
first moved in
crazy.
there, I told the team, I said, I have got to stop. I was eating breakfast, lunch there, and then breakfast for lunch. And
3rd Street stuff. That's cool.
Oh yeah, and we go
yeah.
there. One of us are there at least twice a day,
I love it. Because it's growing and adding new team members.
Yeah, that's right.
And Instagram. I'm so excited. When
That's
I saw
right.
that you were on Instagram, I'm like, I finally have content.
Finally,
for the
you're in
gram.
the 21st.
What was that reaction?
It was.
You were like, ugh.
Yeah,
Like,
really.
what-
No, actually, I was so excited. I was so frustrated. It's compliance. Our industry is heavily regulated, and anything they can't see or read before we send it out, or once it gets posted, they won't allow us to do. So it was interesting because we have had a Facebook page for a long time, probably 4, 5, 6 years. And I was like, but Instagram is Facebook. I mean, you can post on the same, just hit one button and it posts to both.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, we can't monitor.
Compliance
So finally,
didn't like that?
right. So finally, compliance, I guess either they upgraded their software or whatever they did. They said, you can now have an Instagram page.
And so they don't have to approve everything you post, though, right?
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have to send them all your content before you actually post it?
Yeah, and they have a system where Kaylee can send it through.
Oh, that's
Yeah, so that's
that
why.
makes it hard, too.
It does. I mean, it's pretty seamless, I think, with the software. But whenever she's doing something special, like if we're going to send a letter out or anything like that, she has to send that directly to the headquarters.
So it was a process she already did anyway.
Yeah,
Kind of thing. Yeah.
It's so. We had a client that was in financial services, and a similar kind of thing. They were down in Nashville, and any post that went up, of course, goes to compliance, and they come back and want to change one word. And to me, it's innocuous and didn't matter, but of course, to them, it did.
Yeah,
And it's like it's so antithetical to what social media is in a lot of ways
Oh,
because
that's a good point.
you're trying to educate people,
right.
but compliance, and I totally understand. But at the same time, it kills it because it's like
That's really true.
to get out there and educate somebody in an unvarnished manner that doesn't, and because social is more authentic and something that can't be really presented as sterile and commercial.
Yeah,
You have to be.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So like
It
you
is-
can't use certain words that's like more vernacular that people would understand. You can't say that.
So
And
we
it's
it's
frustrating,
funny,
I'm sure.
we just went through this whole battle. So we have the GPPW title. So we try to really use our titles to signify what we do for our clients. And then Raymond James has their title.
Right.
So we use both. And so like we're wealth
Which I like that.
advisors.
I like that
yeah.
when we change that
it
for
is.
you in the book. Yeah.
So they all of a sudden have told us now, Savannah's been using a title they don't want us to use anymore.
Oh my
Because
God.
I think of, Savannah has been using wealth strategist. And she really is, because she's not so much client facing.
Right.
She does do some, but very little. She's really the brains, that puts things, the critical thinking, that puts like tax strategies together. Like as we're meeting with a client, she will review everything, upload their tax return, look at their tax summary. And then let's say if they're going to buy a property, a second home, she'll help what's the best way to finance and do all of that. But they don't want her using wealth strategists anymore. And I'm like, but that's what she is. She's not out client facing. She's not really advising the client any longer. She
helps
it's
you
just
guys.
that
So
one
what does
word.
she use now?
We have to use wealth advisor. So
What's the
which is
difference
fine.
between advice or
Well,
strategist and
I know.
advisor?
I don't know.
What is that?
See, that's like you said, the vernacular of.
Do they ever give you like any reasoning?
No,
Not really. Just
No.
said no.
I mean, literally, we tried, and I can't even tell you how many words we tried, and they're like, no.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Advisor is like not really a third party. You are a third party person to your clients, but like a mentor of sorts, right? Where it's like whatever the advice is, I'm not really hands on with that. I'm just going to say what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Strategy is maybe like feels a little bit more in it.
I guess that could
But
be.
it just feels like
Because
parsing
you need
words.
to work in compliance to
Like,
handle
But
Parse
I
it
feel
through
like
those
it's made
words.
up too. It's like
Yeah.
I'm sitting here overanalyzing this. You know what I mean? And
But
like,
it's to me because I think about like that strategy is what I'm giving advice on. So that's
Right. I think
yeah.
that's great.
So it's just
Smart.
and for our clients, it really helps just understand the roles of each team member.
yeah.
And so just to put her as a wealth advisor, it just kind of bundles us together and makes it feel like, oh, I just call Sherry if I'm,
Right.
wanting to.
Well, and I agree with you because she does a lot of work on the back end for you guys
Yes.
before, so it's like that devalues like sort of like what
What she's
really doing.
exactly.
Like,
And
she
that's
strategizes
that was
for
one
us.
of my thoughts too. I just
Yeah.
thought, I want them to understand she is our critical thinker. It also helps us because if a client calls, they do typically call her. Hey, hey, Savannah, will you run a scenario for me? And I'm looking at paying for this house, but I'm it could be a multitude of things. And so they do think to call her, but people who don't know our team well,
New clients.
yeah,
and
new
things like
clients
that.
and stuff. So, and I want to show like new prospective clients, we are a team. It's not just 3 advisors and you're going to get, okay, I guess I get put with Andrew or I'm going to get put with Savannah. It's really, we're a team and here's how
You
we're,
get all of us.
yeah, you get all of us. That's exactly right.
Yeah. which is
So how do
great.
you show that hierarchy of like Savannah's been here, we want to show
Yeah.
that she's, the go-to for
Right.
a lot of this stuff at the same time of like not trying to overshadow the fact that you are a team. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not like go to Savannah, but we're actually all the same, but go to, you know what I mean? How do you balance?
Well, we to show it, I guess, like in a, in something that we're not communicating about is more difficult. But that's why we do have defined roles and responsibilities. So we do post a lot of that on our website. But our big thing is the onboarding process. And we are very meticulous about that. And I tell the team, you're impeccable about it because they've got a process. And I think through that process, where the touch points are, Kaylee's the first person with this wonderful delivery of, we want to schedule some time with you. And I can make that as convenient as sending you a digital calendar and you can look at yours and schedule it. Or we can just kind of sort through it right now. And so it's always that touch points. So it shows that she's that first step in the process. And then after that, it goes to the next person that will be contacting them would be Ginger. And so Ginger is kind of like our paraplanner because she gets all of the data and the information and she has these wonderful conversations. And she's so good at that because she can dig with people and help them feel easy giving information, very, very important
And you
information.
have to have
very
real
confidential.
unvarnished information too.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And she also gets a story with them. Ginger's so good at pulling the story out about how they feel about their money, what they're wanting to do. And so that's kind of her role. And then it comes to Savannah to take that data, do all the critical thinking. And then we work with Savannah in meetings about that particular client or prospective client.
How long have you and Ginger worked together? It's been a long
Yeah,
time.
23 years.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
2000. We've known each other since high school.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was going to
That's
ask,
cool.
how'd you meet?
Yeah,
High school.
high school.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
It's such a
So-
great team. Like I've enjoyed working with you guys and like,
Thanks.
watching you
Yeah.
guys grow and bringing on Savannah and
Yeah.
Kaylee and now
And
Andrew.
now Andrew,
which is
yeah,
cool.
and he's such a big part of the team because he knew us so well when he did his internship in 19. So
I don't know if you heard that, but he was there.
Yeah, I
first
heard that.
intern.
yeah, very
intern.
first
Yeah,
intern.
So how did you find them? Why was that
Yeah,
a good fit
that's-
for you?
It was a good fit for me. I actually found out about them through one of their clients who I know who's a family friend. I was kind of in my last year of college and deciding
At UK?
Yeah.
At UK,
Okay.
yes. And deciding kind of what that next step would be. And so I was looking at some corporate finance things and was just really seeking advice from one of her clients. And he was like, have you ever thought about financial advising? And it really had never popped up on my radar. He was like, I think you should get in touch with her and at least go talk to her. And so I reached out and we had a great conversation. She offered me the opportunity to come work with the GPPW team and kind of fell in love with the business and knew
Yeah.
that was what I wanted to do. And so it was
What did the
just a great fit.
internship look like? Like, what'd you do?
It was
Yeah.
it was a perfect time because
Yeah.
they were just transitioning to Raymond James. So they gave me a lot of responsibility,
Yeah.
which was great for me because it really kind of gave me a good perspective of what the day-to-day actually looked like. So I was building the financial plans, putting in all the information,
Yeah.
kind of
Doing real work.
Doing real work.
Yeah.
You
absolutely.
weren't just like printing, making copies.
No, not at all.
No,
Not at all.
and it's so funny because I said that. I said, I want to model what we did with Andrew and we do a paid internship as well, because I want them to feel valued and let them know what they're doing for us is valued.
Yeah.
That's why we're and it worked out great because watching him do those things, I was like, this young man is so smart. And
Are there challenges with compliance, like things that he couldn't touch as an intern?
we had to go through compliance. So our internship, he has to get fingerprinted. He has to go through the whole background check and everything.
Like, did he get the same level of access that you could have?
Yeah, he sure
Okay.
did. Mhm.
So basically, you're working with them, but through the filter of you being like the final.
Right.
I couldn't provide
final
advice.
voice.
Or,
Yeah.
or do
Right,
anything
right.
Yeah.
like
Just
that.
kind of shadowing.
That's cool.
them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
important, though. Like
That's
getting
He
really
did. He
real
sat in
experience.
on client meetings and and so we have our intern right now, Perna McGon. She is a Transylvania student, and so sometimes we get students that aren't necessarily looking to go into this career, but they just want exposure to a business and working in corporate world.
And hearing meeting and
Yes.
negotiation and talks.
Yeah,
and,
so like,
learning
and what
skills.
Prerna is really gonna, so she's doing, client things. She sits with each team member so that she can have, like Kaylee's showing her doing marketing and digital media. I've sat with her doing portfolios. She sat in on client meetings. So she's getting exposed to all of it. Operations, and then with Ginger doing the planning. But the other thing she's going to get, we are doing a strategic plan right now for our business, and so she's being incorporated into that strategic
That's
plan.
great.
Cool.
Yeah, so I told her, I said, this is going to be interesting. I said, because the first one I did, it was just like mind blowing. The things you don't think about but the strategic planner really pulls out as part of that.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I have an interview with the woman that's helping them. Is she spearheading the strategic plan as Devonna?
Dewana, she's doing a lot of it because of Megan's closeness with a lot of the team members. Megan. So Devonna's doing a lot of the interviewing. But Megan is kind of the lead on it still.
Is it
So-
Devonna from
Yes.
Ashton Grove back in the day?
Yes.
Okay, I know Devonna.
That's right.
Okay.
She does
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
she left Ashton Grove and started her own business.
Yeah, that's
Because
great.
her real joy and probably, her joy is seniors. She loves working with seniors, but her real creative talent is, doing marketing, branding, just doing those type of things. And so she's also a great speaker and great coach. And so some of the things that she was doing, Megan had noticed. And so Megan owns Sutherland and Associates. And so for some jobs, she's brought Devonna in to help her
That's
do
great.
interviews. And so Devonna will be doing the facilitation too of our strategic plan as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's good.
So what prompted the strategic plan?
Well, I did one that first year making the transition to being, because it's one thing to work for a firm and be in this business. You're still like an entrepreneur, even if you work for a Merrill Lynch or
Right.
any other investment firm.
Sure.
But then, coming over and now being the business owner and, still doing the business of managing wealth for your clients, I really felt like I needed to have more focus and understanding of that. So that first one I did was fantastic because it really helped us with getting like more of the blocking and tackling, so to speak, knowing our roles, responsibilities, what is most efficient. And so right after that, we had extraordinary growth. We had like 42% growth
Wow.
because we were just so efficient. And, I told the team, I said, it was like having a car with the back wheels on the front and the front wheel at the back. And I said, now we got the engine going and we're sporty and we're moving. And so now, it's 4 years later, what we're looking to do, because everybody is just, like I said, I feel like I have the most prestigious, impeccable team. And now it's like, where do we invest for growth? So what is our next leg up for growth? Because these team members have now, like when Emily started her career with us in 19, that was her first career. She was 35, but she'd always had her own little business. And so it was her first time working around other people. And so that really helped her get experience and, how do I work with my team member
Right,
and things
yeah.
like that. So now we're really trying to figure out where do we invest for growth for the next leg up. And so
Very
we're
cool.
bringing the strategic planners back in for us to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So as they said, it's investing for growth, but it's taking like this crown jewel because we've done all the, definitional things and those kind of scalable things. But now where do we go from here? So.
And it's family too, because you're
Yeah.
both your nieces.
Yeah, I got both
right?
my nieces
Yeah.
and
Which is really cool.
working with us. So it was so funny because I always thought of like Savannah and Andrew is so similar in their knowledge. They both were finance majors. Kaylee was a marketing major. So it's really kind of interesting how they've all come together. And, it's kind of like when, you're picking a team for whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like I picked the best players. I
Field
found
hockey,
it.
you're like,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'll
So,
take you.
Yeah.
I'll take you.
So anyway,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
been really good.
I'm curious how you navigate that relationship you're with Raymond James, right?
Right.
So how do you navigate that and be your own thing within something much larger?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people, real estate, for example, it's like they're trying to be their own person within a brokerage.
brokerage,
and it's
yeah.
like, how do they?
It's easier now because Andrew was with Raymond James Advisors. And so when you're with a firm like that, when I was with Hilliard Lyons, you're a W-2 employee. So you're getting your income based on the commission and revenue you bring to the firm. But they take a pretty large chunk of that because they provide your office space and equipment and benefits and all of that. So moving to go independent, I'm really just using the Raymond James platform. So they get a percentage of my revenue for that, but it's a much smaller, they get 13% of the revenue for that. So it's a much smaller percentage. And I get support from them too. But I am not an employee of theirs. So
Almost like a franchise. Kind of.
yeah.
Very much so.
It very much like a franchise. The difference is literally when you go to different independent Raymond James offices, they're going to be so different in how they look, feel, what services they may offer. Just the nice touches. So we get to determine where the bulk of our dollars are invested to really be creative towards our clients and the unique services we want to offer. Whereas like if you're at Raymond James Advisors or Merrill Lynch, there's going to be limits to that because they're taking the bulk of the money and they're saying, well, we got to invest it because the bulk of our advisors want to do business this way.
Yeah.
Whereas, with us just utilizing the Raymond James technology and resources, we get to make the bulk of the decisions with the remainder of those dollars.
That's nice.
So I have to have, I've got my own P&L, so I have to that's where running the business part too, because you got to, watch how much you're spending in different
I
categories.
was going to say it's a trade-off.
It is.
Because you get to be more flexible and independent and leverage their name a little bit too, right? In the sale.
That's right.
But yeah, you're still on the hook for all of that.
For all of that. And I will tell you, that part I'm really finding a lot of excitement about.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Do they give you a pretty long leash to kind of advertise how you want or that sort of thing?
Again, we have to funnel through compliance,
Right.
but we do.
Okay.
So like
That's
any
cool.
of the advertising dollars, we make that decision as a team where we want to invest those dollars.
Yeah. Because they could have said no to a scout guide, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. if the-
We're so
That's
glad
great.
you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, we knew, and we love our relationship with Jen, and we feel like that's been very valuable for us
Yeah.
because we tend to deal with fewer relationships but higher net worth, and so we were really trying to position ourselves where, like, if you're with a firm, they're going to have commercials and maybe advertise in the newspaper or billboards. That's just not our brand. Not to say that's bad or good, but our brand is more exclusive, and we feel very exclusive with the Scout Guide.
How do you get started with something like that, by the way? You're talking about higher net worth, so it's more quality than quantity, if you will, volume, however you want to think of it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So how do you, what is step one if somebody was like, you know what, I want to have an independent firm and I want to work with high net worth individuals.
Yeah.
But to do that, you got to have brand already. You got to have that word of mouth that's actually doing that selling, right?
Yeah.
So how do you start?
Yeah, and I will
become
tell
an
you because
intern.
Yeah.
well, you tell them from your perspective, trying to start even
Yeah.
just
Yep.
starting the business, because unfortunately our industry has a low success rate of new advisors coming into the industry.
Really?
Why?
So
What do you attribute
I
to
think
that?
there's a few different factors. One, it's just a really hard business for people to trust you with their money and really open up the full playbook for, what they spend and what their goals are and what's important to them. And, everyone gets a little tight-fisted with money anyway. And especially early in the business, you're trying to overcome the hurdle of either you're young in age or you're definitely young in
He's the new guy. What does he know?
Yeah,
That
Exactly.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
that's
it's
true,
just
yeah.
trying to build up enough of a client base to be able to just live and survive.
Yeah.
And so when people aren't able to kind of jump those hurdles early enough on, you really just can't make it in the business because you don't have the funds to be able to pay your rent and pay for your food and pay for gas and just those bare necessities. And so it's just having a few breaks go your way here and there to be able to kind of clear a few of those hurdles. And then as you kind of are 2 years in business, 3 years in business, 5 years in business, people start to build that trust and, say, okay, I think he's going to make it. Now I feel comfortable giving him a little bit more and a little bit more, maybe the whole account. And so then you can really start to take off and grow.
And very much word of mouth, I would think, right?
Oh, very
Like
much,
referral.
especially
You're all
since
for sure.
back, gosh, how many decades ago it seems that they did away with phone calling, cold
Yeah.
calling. When I started in the industry in '94, it was cold calling. I mean, you just, or you could buy lists of
bothering
people who, bugging people.
I think that's the other way. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, really.
But I think, I think we might even find, which you all know this, but I was just thinking like, if you've got a really great client that, for those starting out, like you said, and then they want to refer you, but at the same time they're like, oh, we want to keep them to ourselves.
Yeah,
We don't want anybody else to.
Right,
use the-
right.
their-
Yeah,
you know,
because
really.
they know. And I think that's what we try to, like when you were asking that question, I think for me, being able to start Gratz Park Private Wealth, it was because of the prior, essentially 20 years that I put in the business. And, our clients, we have a really high retention rate. We don't have clients leave us. And if you're serving them well and bringing value, they're going to move with you. And so when we made that decision to go independent so that we can, like I said, really determine where our dollars are going to be spent, that was having already that solid client base really helped with that.
Yeah.
I would say it would be much more difficult. It's not impossible. But especially, starting out, I think in our industry, what they're trying to do now is take advisors that have been successful and really build a team around them so that they can have a succession plan. So, that as I retire, that I have a team that's ready to take over and it's going to be seamless because they've already been doing that for this client, for our clientele.
So how do you hand off clients that are there with you and you retire and you're out
Yeah.
the door and they need somebody else? Is that an overlap situation where it's like,
Generally,
we're going to have whoever's going to end up taking over that account, we're going to have them start to come in these meetings a
That's
lot
right.
more.
That's
Well, I
right.
like what you said. I feel like you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody kind of meets each person throughout your process.
That's right.
So they're not like, oh, who's Savannah?
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And
I
there are
remember.
teams that do it that way. Like they segment their book of clients. You take these clients, I'll take these, and that's you're risking the fact that if that advisor
Trust.
decides to retire or
Yeah.
dies early, then where do those clients go? So Andrew brings a lot of value to our meetings because he has ideas and understanding of markets and things of that nature. So he interjects during our meetings. So he's very involved in those client meetings. There will be just for efficiencies, there will be some I meet with that maybe he wouldn't, but in general, we're going to probably meet with most of our clients together.
Everybody
Yeah.
gets a touch
Yeah,
point. So
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. He may have more frequent contact with a particular client than me, but generally with our wealth alignment meetings, that's what we call them when a client comes in for their review. It's going to be both of us, so that they have that
That's
comfort
nice.
level. Yeah, it really is.
So what have you learned from Andrew?
Actually,
It's maybe new, different, whatever.
yeah. Well, you know what? Different. I tell him all the time. Every time we go out of a meeting, and maybe he's leading the conversation, I tell him. I said, I love the phrases you use. He has great bridges in conversations.
Have you found one that he uses all the time?
Yes. And I
What
love
is
it. It's talking about the current conditions, about the possibility of a recession, and we meet monthly to decide what does this economic environment look like. And I said, yeah, I think it's going to be a mild recession. We both kind of agree. And he says, we're thinking the economy is going to slow down, but it's where you're kind of wading into the water instead of falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought
Nice.
that's good because it's not going to be like a recession that hits us in the face like COVID did when we shut down the economy, and next thing you know we're in a recession.
Yeah.
He talks about wait. I said I like that. That's a great bridge. So
And everybody kind of has their own little
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
way of doing
yeah.
it in a meeting. And
Well,
it's
and then the other thing I was like, I've been trying to explain to clients like, yeah, the S&P 500 is up 14% year to date. But it's a narrow market. It's really just a handful of companies that are giving the bulk of that return. It's the large tech companies like Facebook is up 125%, and their weighting in that index is pretty significant. So that's giving us a lot of the return. And I said, soon it'll be a broader market, more stock companies participating in that return of the S&P 500. But he pointed out, he said, if you equally weight all the companies, the 500 companies in the index would be up around 4% year to date. But because it's a cap weighted, meaning the larger companies have more influence over those returns in the S&P 500, it's up nearly 14%. And I thought, that's a better way of saying it. I like that. So he's taught me a few things.
I'm curious about the Facebook thing. Like, why are they? What'd you say? 120%?
125%.
What's driving?
Actually, it might even be higher than that.
What are they doing that's really driving?
Because they dropped to the depths of the markets last year. So growth stocks, when you have high inflation, high interest rates, that's a huge headwind for a growth company. And so when they trade at high multiples, multiple is you take the price of the stock, divide it by their earnings, and that gives you their PE ratio or their multiple. And most of those type of companies trade at 40, 50, 60 times earnings. Even Amazon was up over 100 times earnings. Whereas like a JP Morgan trades at 11 times earnings, 12 times earnings. So when you have high multiples like that type of market's going to reset that multiple quickly. So they were down over 72% last year. Wow. And you think about that, Facebook was not a company that should have lost 72% of their value. They're still a viable company. But when you can't grow earnings at those multiples, you're going to get,
They're just such
smashed.
an outlier for how much people complain about Meta in general. How many times does Mark Zuckerberg have to go in front of Congress and testify about something?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, I hate Facebook. But still, here we are.
Nobody
It's like there's something that just can't
And people
seem to
that say
bring
that
it
they're
down.
not on it are lying.
Well, they're the ones saying it on Facebook.
Right.
I hate Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook
You're
this.
on
I'm
it.
like,
It's kind of our social media addiction, It's when you really look around, people. And I think we all get a little triggered when we don't have our phone. I forgot to bring my phone with me today, and I was like, "Ooh, am I going to be okay?" I didn't bring my phone. Is somebody trying to stitch me? Yeah. So I think it is, but I'm anxious to see what other things, because Meta's got to continue to monetize what they're doing, and I'm anxious to see, because I haven't really got into the metaverse.
I really think social media.
And they spend a lot of money in that, and I don't know how.
That's the thing. It's like they just, because Meta obviously is Instagram and WhatsApp and everything else. So it's like you look at Instagram as its own little bubble.
Right.
And they keep putting stuff out there that's like, nobody's asking for this.
Right.
So how in the world does a company keep giving you features of stuff where the customers are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
There's no other place where people like just keep using it. You know what I mean?
Because
We're just going to keep
We're
doing
the guinea
it.
pigs, yeah.
And I guess
We're
maybe
gonna keep
because it's
using
at
it.
maturity, like the platform where it's like
I think
such a
some
part
of
of our
it
lives.
is. Yeah, and
where we're
that the whole
I-
cycle of any business, you're going to have that growth stage, and you have the platform, and then you have another leg up. But you got to create that next leg up.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of
somehow
like
they
us.
keep doing it in a time where all the users are like,
I don't know. I think they've got a lot of creative minds. Just even the addition of Reels kind of gave it a boost,
Absolutely.
which was.
Well, I think it's been interesting, to watch, because Scout Guide we represent all industries. That's our job, is to really try to have a nice representation of every city in each industry. And so to watch that from my perspective, because I'm Switzerland, with all my different industries, with professional services and food and fashion and all this, even my kids that are 14, like my 14-year-old, even with TikTok, even though you've got a lot of rules and regulations, there's a lot of value. Like my son will come to me and talk to me about tips and things he's learned about money,
Right.
about fixing something, you know. I mean, it taught me how to cut a pineapple. I had
Yeah.
never cut a real pineapple before. I don't know why I hadn't at almost 50, but I never cut a pineapple before.
I know.
And I'm like, and he's like, Mom, go on TikTok. They'll teach you how to cut a
Isn't it-
pineapple.
it's
Because I knew
amazing.
there was a specific way to do it, you know. But I was like, I don't know. I'm like looking at it.
Yeah.
But they, you know, it's a very, very educational tool. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, and I think for professional services, that's what I found. I think that it's hard because it's like, where do we fit into this space?
Right.
How do we still look professional, and how do we still advise without
Uh-huh.
feeling hokey and goofy or whatever?
Right.
But I feel like you said, but your audience, I think it makes you, it humanizes you.
Yes,
You know?
I do too.
It kind of gives you a personality of your firm. Like, oh, here's what I might expect to see when I get there,
Right.
before even signing up with you or talking
Uh-huh.
to you. So I feel like there's a lot of really.
I think
good
that it's been really key because what our clients have liked, and then when they've referred people and people have looked at, you know, certain things, I think our clients like it when we are more humanized, I guess.
Yeah.
Whenever we've done videos, I remember even like during COVID, the feedback, you know, I would do like little market talks. The one we got the feedback on most was when we all introduced our pets, you know, our dogs.
Yeah, of course.
I know
It's
this
like-
has nothing to do with what we do.
Exactly.
It's always the damn dogs. Everyone wants to see the
Yeah.
I
dogs.
love the
But,
dogs.
but too, I think in our industry that you know, generally your relationship with your advisor is really based on trust.
Right.
And so the more that you can be humanized
Absolutely.
and people
Especially with
understand
what
who
you guys
you are.
doing.
Yeah.
You know?
But how in the world do you balance that though? I mean, you're talking about like such regulation over the words and the message that you're conveying. You can't even say strategist.
I know, that's true.
And
Just put your dogs out there.
and you're
Yeah.
and you're also dealing with people's money and a lot of it in
Yeah,
a lot of cases
Right.
where like I'm kind of curious about how all of that mixes together because I would imagine there are probably some clients that walk in the door and they demand traditional professionalism. You
Right.
look a certain way, sound a certain way, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Present yourself a certain way.
right.
And then other people that maybe want that more human side where you don't look so buttoned up.
Yeah.
Even though you're still dealing with a lot of money, they still want that trust in a different way.
Mhm.
So how do you balance all of that
Yeah.
together?
Because you could, you know,
Yeah.
as we just met with clients of Andrew's, I think you have shown like that's a great, like, you know, you are friends and
Right. And it's been a good perspective for me because coming from the more corporate channel to the more independent channel, like Sherry was saying, you know, we get to control the experience from the time they walk in the door
That's
to the time they walk out the door after our meeting. And so even just the atmosphere of we don't have a conference room that looks very,
Oh, that's right.
you know,
Yeah.
you know,
That's right.
yeah,
buttoned up and impersonal and, you know, very cold.
Yeah.
You know, where we meet almost looks like a living room that you'd have in your house. And so it
Yeah.
really helps people kind of relax.
Yeah.
and
It sets the tone
get
for what's
comfortable
going on.
and-
That's
Yeah.
a good point. Yeah.
that is one of the things when because we loved our space
Yeah.
at Market Street, and unfortunately the one room that we had, the one large room that we had a conference table, so we were sitting like this, and that was not our brand. We've always
Wasn't it?
just met at a
Yeah.
round table because we always think of it as conversation. And so one of the great benefits of moving into our new space, we have two rooms downstairs. One we call the living room because it really does look like a living room. We intend to do more family meetings there, where clients want to bring in their children or grandchildren, and then in our other conference room, what we call our conference room, is just 4 chairs and they swivel. And there's a round table in the middle, and we have a monitor where we can show, you know, if we need to show them their portfolio or their plan, their financial plan. But it's just really relaxed. They're very
It is.
deep
It's
seated.
very. You'll have to check it out because
Yeah.
it's so nice. It's very formal, but it feels it's very cozy.
Cozy,
and
yeah,
relaxing,
yeah,
you know, but it's very
yeah.
well done.
And their next big purchase is going to be a really nice coffee machine, so we can make lattes. And, probably put a little wine fridge over in the
There you
corner.
go.
I'm coming just for the coffee.
yeah.
I'm coming to the
So
wine.
you can schedule your meeting for coffee or wine,
Yeah.
depending on the time of day, right?
And they have a gorgeous patio upstairs. Too.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
really
you
nice
can check it out.
rooftop.
Yeah,
That
it's
sounds
really
awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
So retirement, when is that?
Well, I was going to ask, before you answer that, I was going to ask you with your strategic plan, though,
Yeah.
what about 5 years from now? Like, are you thinking about another location? Have you thought about maybe a second location somewhere?
We're in the midst of maybe doing an acquisition. So
We're giving away all the secrets.
yeah.
Oh,
So we
wow.
we had the opportunity, and this is a great example of an advisor moving out of the business. Her
Okay.
husband started having some health issues, so she decided she's 30 years in the business and was ready to move on, but she's still got a lot of energy, but wants to do more higher level things. So we're looking at acquiring her business and her clients. She's got a young advisor in the office now. It reminds me of our team probably 8 years ago, and two she's a paraplanner and then a client service associate. So we feel like that we have a lot of synergy and can move into that space with them and really kind of work together as one large team, even though we're in two different geographic locations, but really have the synergies to use best practices and support each other, and then really help energize it and grow this business. So yeah, so that's one of the things. You know, it's interesting now that I've been, because I told the team it was probably a month and a half ago. I said, you know, we're going to continue to grow organically. They're doing such an amazing job, and we do get quite a few referrals. But I said, I'm also going to look to maybe do some acquisitions. And it was 2 weeks later when this opportunity was presented.
You didn't even know.
Didn't even know. And it was really
You
interesting.
just manifested it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I said. But what was really interesting, it's an all women's team.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, she was really
Yeah.
hoping to move to a practice. And there's not, you know, we're
Like
still
you said, how you started out. Like, you
Yeah.
felt like,
and we're still a smaller, you know, percentage in our industry, female advisors. So she was hoping to find that to be able to transition the book to a women-led team.
Yeah.
And so it's really worked well. But we were looking in other markets anyway. You know, we do Kaylee, our brand and marketing coordinator, is in Nashville. And so,
I keep forgetting that she's in Nashville.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So she's can look for opportunities there for us, and
That's great.
yeah. So we're wanting to expand the market. Of course, we have clients in many different states.
All over.
Yeah, really all over.
Sure.
So, but really having a location like what we hope to have, and this maybe happen in the next 6-12 months is what we're hoping.
Wow, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
So obviously with the acquisition, you're taking on their assets and probably
Yeah.
people and all
That's
that
right.
stuff, which is great because, well, you don't have to install any of that. But at
Right.
the same time, it comes with, you know, them and
That's right.
like retraining.
Retraining, yeah.
And so how do you balance that? Another question, I guess, would be too, like, what's the benefit of a M&A type thing versus just starting clean, like your own thing,
Yeah.
you know, where you have maximum control and you don't have to teach and
And that's something, because people always say your book is like yourself, because generally it's kind of like that's who you make relationships with, that's who you feel comfortable with, and we talk about that often. And so that is a big concern when you're making an acquisition. Is number one, how do the clients feel? Is it personalities gonna match up?
Are we gonna have to fire any of these people? That's
Yeah, exactly. Am I going to think that's so that I think is part of the doing the due diligence and making that selection, is meeting the team members, really pulling them aside and saying, hey, what really goes on here? How do you feel about this practice? And then, meeting and really vetting the types of clientele that they're working with, how they're managing the assets, because there's multiple ways to manage portfolios.
I guess that makes sense, because if you come in with a totally different approach,
Right.
they're going to feel like they're getting thrown around.
Exactly.
And they don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
Right?
And in some situations, there could be tax implications if you're selling out of portfolios in a taxable account, So I think that due diligence is very important. It's not just about how much revenue is the business already making and how long they've been in business and how many assets they're managing. Those are all important. But I think a lot of these other more softer things that we need to look at. And
I wish people,
I
posted something yesterday about this, and it was interesting, some of the feedback, but about M&A, because so many people will they'll acquire something and immediately just like blaze it all to the ground because they just want to maximize, reduced all the labor costs, and now here we look like we made a ton of money. And we're just going to flip it and resell it to somebody else.
Right.
And that just bothers me.
It does me
know?
too.
So I appreciate you talking about like due diligence and soft things, because it's not just about the hardcore.
And in our industry, when you're selling a business like ours, you could get higher multiples if you sell it to like a private equity firm. But the private equity firm coming in and the experience your clients are going to have with a group like that may be totally different. I'm not saying that private equity is bad, but there could be a chance that, hey, the private equity firm wants to do these things, and they're looking more at the results and the bottom line than
It's
the
a more
client
corporate
experience.
thing. It's like having shareholders, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's.
So we do engage in that conversation a lot with the team.
But I appreciate you saying that. I think that's good.
Well, like you said, I think it's got to be a good fit. All of it. It's not just.
Yeah.
It's the whole
You want to
personality
do
of the
right,
business,
and you
too.
want to do meaningful work.
personality portfolios. Like
Yeah.
like you said, that's all very personal.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So what do you want to do with retirement? Whenever that is. When are you planning on?
Do you remember what I call retirement instead of retirement?
Choosing what you do with your day.
Yeah, the freedom,
I like
the freedom
that.
to choose your day is what I even tell clients that. I said, let's not use the word retirement because
That's great.
there's lots of people who are maybe towards the end of their career, and that word retirement just feels like you're going out to
Out to pasture?
out to pasture, so to speak. You don't have a purpose or something. So I say, no, now you get to move to the freedom to choose your day. And quite frankly, I feel that way. My team allows me to feel that way. So if I, have a vision to do something and kind of move off course a little bit, I know I have the support of my team and they're so good that it's seamless. There's nothing that changes in our business.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I'm so energized. And as I mentioned before, running a business is fun. I realized, it's nice that trying to make decisions tactically. Is this going to get us to where we want to be? And what would it do if we went this way? And just to see. And the other thing too, I've said all along, I really want to help women get into this industry and help grow women professionally. So that's another aspect that I'm able to really enjoy and do while working. But I could see that maybe I give more energy to those kind of things while still being, a big part of Graz Park Private Wealth.
Yeah.
The great thing for me knowing is whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, I could do it today and it would be seamless, because I have such great,
assembled such a great
such a
team.
great team.
So speaking of the getting women to join into this industry and things like that and start in the industry, the Women's Worthy Alliance.
Oh yeah, Women's Worth Alliance.
Worth Alliance.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about
Thanks
that.
for asking
We've got
about
one coming
that.
up,
Yeah.
right?
We do,
6th.
July 6th, the Thursday. So Women's Worth Alliance, we started really as just the thought that, by 2030, 2/3 of women, or 2/3 of the assets are going to be controlled by women. And so, that's a big number.
What changed to make that possible, by the way?
Number one, women live longer. Divorces, so women are going to control more assets. And education. If you look at education right now, more than half of freshman entrants into college are women. And that's been a change that's happened over the last 3-4 years. More than half of women in law, or more than half of students in law school are women. More than half of women or students in medical school are women. So I think it's more women in career paths and getting educated, so they're getting bigger incomes. There's more getting closer to equal pay. We're not quite there, but equal compensation for.
Where are we at right now?
It's somewhere like
It was
70.
like 78%.
Yeah, well, it's
78
about
cents or
yes,
something,
it's
right?
yeah,
To the
78
dollar.
cents
Yeah.
on the dollar. I think that's about where we still are. I think it may have moved up to 80 or 81, but we're still getting there, but much more. Much higher than where it's been. So
I'm going to ask a dumb question because off the
Oh,
top of
no,
my
dumb
head, I
question,
can't
dumb
remember.
questions.
What do we use as a country to define that 78 cents to a dollar? What are we looking at? Big picture.
Yeah, I don't know the specific data. I think part of it is they look at industries. So it may be different for different industries. So the 78 cents would be an average.
Sure.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
say that about everything.
Yeah,
just
that's
as
right.
A country,
as
right?
a country. So I don't know how they're collecting the data from those industries, but I think they're taking each industry and then doing an average on the industries is my understanding.
I feel like we need more conversation around those things
Yeah.
because we have these data sets and we
just
both
accept
just
them.
said it and we accept it, but we don't know where that
Where that comes from.
where
Right.
it come from.
Yeah, and then you know what else I think?
Yeah, who is that?
Right. And the other thing I think that should be as part of that is not just compensation and salary, but compensation and benefits. Because maybe the salaries of women are lower, but they're getting these extra benefits that they choose. Because, we try to do that even for our team members. We try to give, one of the things I've always said in this career, I've always enjoyed autonomy in my career. So I have the flexibility that if I need to take the day off or if I need to go run an errand, just that autonomy to make my own decisions. And I think that's so important.
Yes.
And we try to do that as a team that, we're always wanting to give autonomy to each team member. And so that autonomy may be that, maybe women, certain or men aren't looking for the highest compensation for a salary, but maybe more benefits, more time off, more maybe ability to work from home or things of that nature.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because if healthcare law you mentioned, right, going to school for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those almost feel like soft skills in a way.
Yeah.
And then a lot of guys in particular are going into like tech.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or actually not even going to school and doing more hands-on
That's
kind of
something
stuff.
a
So
lot.
it seems like that.
Yeah.
Those gender roles that everybody is trying to overcome, it seems like we're actually also kind of settling back into them in a weird way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like STEM.
I'm just talking out loud.
No,
and
no,
kind of
I
working
know.
with it, but
I think STEM,
yeah,
like
it's
you
kinda
think
interesting.
of, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
trying. They women are trying, or young ladies are trying to get more into that, career path. But
Yeah.
maybe it is reverting back more.
I don't know what to do with that information. I just sort of thought it, but yeah.
Maybe it's just even with what's the opportunities out there too.
Yeah.
Whether it be more technology based.
Yeah. I guess maybe I'm bringing it up to say like, are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Because so many times we have movements of like we want to elevate people to do certain things, and then it's like, but is that what people want?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it seems, you know what I mean?
But it's an interesting.
yeah,
it's
I don't know
to
how
see
you-
that well, I have an 18-year-old son. They just graduated from high school, and none of the guys wanted to go to college.
Isn't it amazing?
I mean, they're going, but the conversations that I would hear,
but I have
like
seen
between the boys and the girls, like at the, if they were all having dinner at my house or if they were all talking, the girls were like, "I'm going to medical school. Or, I'm going to be this." And the guys were like, "I don't know. I don't really care."
It's
I'm like,
amazing.
"What?"
Well, so
Like it was interesting. Like some of the guys were not very driven.
I feel
In
like
a
social
career
has
path.
driven a ton of that.
In
Because when you go on
empowering young
social-
women,
Both sides of that conversation, I think, are driven. You got the Andrew Tates of the world, the alpha male, whatever, the athlete, like people that didn't have a voice before. I mean, we see it in our politics.
Well, that's true.
Things that we,
Yeah.
as a country, kind of took for granted and said, like, yeah, we're all kind of against this thing. Now it's like, well, everybody gets an equal
I learned
say.
how to cut a
So-
pineapple.
yeah.
But I mean, like, how do I want to say this gently, but it's like you got athletes and other people that didn't really have individual voices before are now some of the most influential people.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're also not necessarily the type of people they got maybe into athletics in a lot of cases because school wasn't the right choice. So when you get
Right.
these certain kind of things where people were not predisposed to where like education and intellectual, achievement was really a thing, something that's more hands-on and tactile.
Yeah.
When those are the biggest voices out there, of course they're going to be driving
Well, that's an
culture because
interesting
now those
take on it
boys
too,
are out there
yeah.
looking at those people and saying like, oh, I could go do stuff with Bitcoin. I can go like flip stuff from like eBay, like
Yeah, or
arbitrage and all
NFT.
that kind of
That's the
stuff.
interesting thing
All
too.
of
So,
that
like,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
if people are investing from like your perspective of that, has that changed? Because people were investing in like Nike and stuff like that because they were aligning themselves with a person, right? I mean,
Yeah.
But now the person doesn't necessarily have to be aligned with anything.
Yeah.
They're becoming their own entity in popularity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like it's kind of it's switched now because you can't necessarily invest in a player Can you? Can
Well,
you sell?
I guess if you
Can you?
Depends.
NFT?
Maybe an NFT, but
Oh yeah. NFTs.
You sort of can in a backwards way, maybe through who they endorse.
brand. I know, but that's what I'm saying, like, a lot of
if
people
they got some with
sometimes don't-
Nike and you go
Yeah.
buy all of
Kinda
their
s-
shoes.
Do you see what I'm saying? It's kind
Yeah.
of switching now. It's like a lot of people are following certain athletes because they like the athlete, not necessarily the brands they're
Yeah.
associated with.
Well,
When it
yeah,
used to be
the
brand.
leverage is certainly
Right.
flipped for sure. Because the brand, the team used to bring notoriety to you, the individual, but now it's
Yeah.
obviously the opposite
Yes.
because they
Because-
figured that out.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
because the NIL.
It's not about playing. I mean, we're seeing that right now. Kids that are leaving one school that's maybe a D1 school, and now they're going to a D2 because they couldn't care less about the quality of the game. They're there to get paid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
it's-
and then you get somebody like Livy Dunn.
yeah,
You know, Livy,
down in
like,
SEC,
yeah,
LSU.
when she came here and she was part of the whole gymnastics thing, and
Yeah.
they sold out
And
because of
and
this
she
girl
didn't
that had
even
nothing to
compete.
do with what was going
She
on.
was injured, so she
Yeah.
didn't even compete, but they still
Exactly.
sold out.
It had nothing to do with her gymnastics
Well, that's
either.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
It,
It's
it
like-
did, but it didn't.
It's,
You know what I mean?
her.
It's-
It's just the person.
yeah, she rises above gymnastics.
Yeah.
Tell me about
I
this
think
NFT thing.
Well, the non-fungible
Yeah.
tokens, you know, it's interesting. They had such a huge rise, and then they're, you know, obviously with, again, inflation like that, it takes all of those type of investments down. But, you know, it's hard to understand because when I think of an NFT, or maybe you, is that, like, for example,
I don't know what to.
it was the,
Right.
So confusing.
well, it's just like art, you
Yeah.
know. If there's, you know, the Mona Lisa, you know, you say it's worth millions, but if somebody just doesn't like the painting, is it really worth millions? You know, it's building that psychological aspect of what is the value of this?
Well,
Right.
Because the value of
Yeah.
anything is only what somebody will
It's all
pay for
perception.
it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
That's right.
And so the NFT, like I think one of the ones that I remember was fascinating. It was LeBron James' first slam dunk in the NBA, and it was digital. So it was the first original picture, and that one sold for over 250,000 or 300,000. And it was like, what, you know? But it's just those type of
Mind-blowing,
things.
yeah.
It's the ability to say, I have the digital copy. Doesn't matter that everybody could watch it on YouTube,
Yeah.
you know?
You just want to be
Yeah.
the one that has it.
But
People just wanna
to
be
that
the
point,
one, yeah.
like what we were just talking about, like males seem like they get caught up in a lot of times in that
Yeah.
stuff. It's a quick money cash grab. I mean, like, oh my gosh, what is it called? Apes. Bored Apes.
Oh,
Do you know that NFT collection?
Oh,
like
yeah.
crazy AI looking. I don't know if
Apes,
I think
yeah.
it was all AI, but
Yeah.
all these different apes, AI driven, and it was a cool thing to have as being yours. It's like there was nobody screaming for that. Like there's not a market where everybody was like, "Oh my God, we really need these Bored Apes," you know?
Yeah.
It came out of
It was just
nowhere,
like-
and then just like
Yeah.
had this weird thing
Well,
where
that's what social media does, because once it
Yeah.
catches,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just like back in the day, we didn't have social, but remember Pet Rocks?
oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they took off. And it's like everybody felt like they needed a pet
Rock
rock.
City.
Yeah, Rock City.
you know there was literally I don't. Oh, I think
Or
it was in
Beanie
8th
Babies,
grade
you know?
I learned
Oh,
this.
gosh, Beanie
I grew up in
Babies.
South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
In Columbia, and there was a law in the books from the 70s about pet rocks that they can't be off leash on the state house grounds, which I was like, surely to God
We got
something
to a
didn't
whole
happen.
other level.
It's not
Like,
real.
who spent time making this law? So I'm kind of curious to go back and see
Yeah.
like were people out there just like
Although
hanging
that
out,
could have
throwing
been
rocks
Congress.
at each other. Like, I was just like, good lord. Anyway, it just made me think of that.
But I do, and
Yeah.
I think going back to the decline of males entering college, you know, I think about some of the stories I've heard. This one young man, he's prolific on Instagram, and he's making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and he's very smart. His father owned a business, and he's very intelligent and very entrepreneurial. And you know, he felt like he would be wasting time in classrooms. He felt like he was learning more about business, running the business, and doing the influencing. And you know, so far he's right. He's making
Yeah.
a really good income. And
It's interesting.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
maybe we have as much value on, you know, philosophy and English literature that I think is critical because it's how we communicate, it's how we think. And so I kind of a little nervous to see the future of, some demographics as they age and how they're going to communicate.
Since COVID,
Yeah.
are you seeing people, because it feels like it, I feel like, for some reason, I don't know if it's Instagram or what, but everybody's going to Italy and everybody's going to Greece.
Mhm.
Is there something going on over there I don't know about? Like, what's happening?
No,
Are
it's
they giving
exactly
away
what
free
we're
things?
talking about.
But
It's
like-
the
but-
sheer appearance and perception
I
that
know,
you're
right.
somebody
Well, that's
cool.
what
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing people investing in? Is it travel? Are people
Yeah, we were just
spending
talking
their
about
money a
this.
little bit more? Are they saving more? Do you think that they're being a little more,
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
COVID, feeling like we will die tomorrow and we will
Right.
have all this money sitting here?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, let's live our lives.
We were talking about that in the meeting we just had. Is there was that when people got locked down, they were just at home and they were at home for so long that they were just itching to get out and go anywhere. And so now that things are opening back up, airlines are still full, cruises are still full,
And everybody
hotels
bitches
are
about
full.
the airlines.
Yeah.
They still are like,
Right.
I'm just here for 5
Because-
hours. But I
Right.
want to
That's what
go.
we were saying.
What's the alternative? Where are you going to drive?
What are you going to do?
Because
Yeah.
if you think about like investing right now and you see that, I would be afraid to really invest in a Marriott. They trade publicly, or cruise lines, because
This is not advice,
right,
right?
right, because you can do what you want, but anyway, I only say that because I'm just fascinated how this economy is doing what it's doing right now.
Right.
Because
That's what I mean.
I was just traveling, went to Florida. Flights are still expensive,
Yeah.
and they're increasing them. Cruises are still full, and I'm like, so if during COVID we had the big increase in money supply. We measure that. It's the M2 money supply. It's how much we hold in checking and savings and money markets. And 40% increase in money supply from 2020 to the end of 2021. 40% increase. Typically, we see an average increase of about 6% a year. Okay, so all that stimulus checks, all of it went into those bank accounts. 2022, we actually contracted that, and we've never seen contraction as quick as we have. It's now a negative money supply. So we've contracted this money supply, and that's through the higher interest rates that the Fed's been doing. So we swung that pendulum one way, and we're swinging it back, and it's just, I don't know how it's going to impact the economy over the next 6 to 12 months. The Fed doesn't really know, and I think that's why the Fed is a little tentative. They didn't raise rates in June, but they said we're going to raise them again in July. And
I feel like social is a component of this. I think so much of this is just socially driven.
yeah,
Because how people behave has
Yeah.
always been impacted on their environment, the people around them.
Yeah.
Right?
that's right.
So now if the people around you are 7.2 billion people on social media or however many it is,
Yeah,
you get exposed to things that you didn't know was possible. I mean,
Yeah.
when we talk about this and we're saying decline of males go to college, also the increase of females, women owning businesses and
Yes.
everything else, just 2/3 of assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like all of that is driven off of witnessing things on
Yeah.
social and so much education in the finance space.
yeah,
The concept of an arbitrage in general is so at scale now, people
Yeah.
understand what that is.
yeah. That's
Which
right.
is why, like, going and flipping bourbon barrels that are sitting inside of a rick house for 6 years, why
Yeah.
that's the thing that people could do. Like,
Right.
everybody has these, like, what used to be gate kept, is that a word? Behind gates, like, only people in the know would
They
keep
didn't want to
this
share
kind
their
of.
secrets,
Yeah.
their
Right.
industry secrets.
Now
and
we know
things like that.
everything.
Yeah.
Now we know everything.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good
so the
point.
people that didn't
True.
know have access to that
To that
information
knowledge.
now.
Yeah.
Well, even
And
like
you could do it, I'm sorry,
No,
but
go ahead.
I was going to say you could do a lot of this stuff with almost no money, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
But you didn't know that before until now.
The interior design industry, they were like my clients that I work with, that they were all worried because they're like, all these mood boards, I have to put mood boards out to give people inspiration, but then they're just going to go and do it themselves. They're going to DIY it, and they've just had to overcome that and just like hope that people will still come to them and utilize them, because social media has made it a lot easier to just kind of figure all that
Figure all
stuff
that out. That's right.
So
Yeah.
interior designers have really kind of struggled with, like you said.
Well, you
just
gotta.
like, everybody thinks they're an interior designer now.
That's
It's
right.
like,
Because
I just saw it on
information is at your
Instagram,
fingertips.
Right.
So if you want to find out about something or figure out how to do something or look at something creatively, it's at your fingertips. So, a couple of things, because you mentioned, so what are you thinking, like where are people investing? I said, I hope they're not investing in those, because they're seeing a peak in travel. Delta's getting ready to report their best quarter ever in history, second quarter earnings. But that means you're buying that stock high because it's already acknowledged that. But another area they're looking at is AI, and you think about AI and how, because really AI has been around. It's now becoming that generative AI, which is a much better, version of AI.
Right.
And as that gets better and better, how do we compete with that? And so even like you said, with interior design, if somebody can go to a DIY board or Etsy board and figure out how to do it. So we have to be more creative. So what we try to do is really create a client experience like none other,
You gotta offer
Yeah.
something really even a little better.
we gotta show that to the client that, we're basically your concierge service for wealth management. We want you to go out and do the things you want to be doing. We'll make sure to be on top of your taxes.
Right.
We'll be talking with your CPA. We'll talk with your estate planning attorney. We'll make sure you don't have exposure to risk that's unforeseen. So it's those kind of things that you've really got to enhance the value you're bringing as we move forward.
I'm just thinking about this. I think it's kind of interesting. Like at first, before social, for example, and the level of access we have to information today, a business was really selling expertise in something and confidence, because people didn't have confidence in themselves to interior decorate their kitchen or whatever, right? And do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's a certain level of confidence that you can gain, because now they're not gatekeeping how to do certain things.
Right. There's
So
no more
certain
secret
tasks
stuff
you
about
might
secrets
say,
anymore.
I'll just do that myself.
Yeah.
But then also on the other side of that is, I have the confidence to do that, but I don't have the time or interest in doing it. So even though I know I could do it and want to, I'm not going to. I'm just going to hand this off to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think understanding where your clients sit in those kind of journeys is super important.
Well,
And I don't think we talk about that
And the thing I
enough.
told my interior design clients too is I was like, people may be able to go out and replicate what they see, but it's still never going to be how you would do it.
Right.
You're
That's
still the
yeah.
expert,
Right.
right? Like other people can take advice, but it's still, like you said, it's your environment, it's what sets you apart that they're going to miss out on at the end of the day.
Right.
Whether or not it's interior design or whatever it might be, but it
And
it's the
too,
environment you're creating.
And if you can give a plug for education, it's how you articulate that. I think is so critical and so important. Like how we articulate what the experience is going to be and what we're going to do for those clients. I think is so important. How you articulate to us, as far as our experience with Scout Guide is so important, because through words you say to me is that's, what, I do want to just have Jen do this because, what she just told me is what my experience is going to be is so important.
Right.
So I just think that how people are going to be able to articulate, think through things, that will still be there. I think that's still going to exist. And I think you're going to have to do it for different generations too. We talk all the time about, okay, how is the millennial experience? How are you
have
getting
different
information
voice.
and like on, the stock market or the economy, and how are you being able to digest that information too? Because without somebody articulating certain things, it might be like I'm reading it, but
Absolutely.
I think it's funny too, though, is like we think of things as being different because now there's a new generation behind us.
Yeah.
But we're just so similar to how we've always been. I mean, and how we talk about like sales funnels, for example. Those funnels have been there, marketing funnels, for example, like acquisition and all the way down, right? And 5 major components. All of that.
Yeah.
All the way down to conversion. But there's at scale, again, back to what we said before, now so many people, this is like news to them. They didn't really know this was a thing, So where was I going with that? Oh my God. My brain is always like 13
We're talking about
steps ahead.
generations, maybe,
Yeah.
or different types of.
But I guess what I'm getting at is I think it's interesting to see how similar we are to things we've always known, but how they just manifest to show up in a different way with what's here now.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like AI there are a lot of people like in arts, especially, that are like, oh my God, is
Yeah.
graphic design done? Because I could just say, give me a
I know.
picture of
Right. That's
Barry Bonds wearing a whatever
Yeah.
in a cafe, and
Right.
psh, there it is. You don't
Yeah.
have to hire somebody.
And I
But
think it's through every, like the Industrial Revolution. I'm sure lots of people thought, oh my gosh, things are going to change so drastically. I'm going to be affected in such a negative way.
Mhm.
And I generally think that most of these, breakthroughs. I mean, because AI is definitely like a breakthrough,
Yeah,
like the internet
sure.
was. But I think it's just a tool that we can use to live better,
I
work
think so, too.
better,
We had
play
that
better.
discussion once before. It's like, here it is, something new that's everybody always, we all get so like, it's going to take over,
Yeah,
and then it's
yeah.
going to fade.
Yeah,
Everybody worries about losing their
Yeah.
job, and it's
Yeah.
like you can still do the job in a different way.
right.
I think the
It shouldn't
underlying
have
part of
hands.
It's like,
the underlying part of any of this is time. That's the only thing we're all most
Right.
concerned about, because
Yeah.
it's not infinite.
and I feel like
And,
everything
like,
has its niche.
We're trying to
Mhm.
find
It
efficiencies in what we're doing.
Yeah.
Why do you hire somebody else to work with you?
Yeah.
Well, because you can't do the level of work
Or-
that you're doing by yourself.
Right.
It's efficiency, it's time, it's all of that, right?
Mhm.
AI, the same thing, and video editing and photo editing and all that stuff. We could sit here and feel threatened, or we could just figure out, how do we embrace this in a way that's just going to make our workflow more efficient? It's
Right.
not going to eliminate you.
Mhm.
It's just going to be part of what you're doing,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've talked about the AI thing as well, talking about the efficiencies. Like, think about all the things you do each day, whether it's like typing out a full email or taking notes on
Yeah.
something that could be done, in the snap of fingers, and how much more productive you could be
It's true.
Right.
with your time, whether that's, instead
Yeah.
of having to work full 8 hours, you can get it done in 6, or whether
Yeah.
it's, not having to hire an extra person, or
Right.
then
Yeah.
being able to focus on something else, or
Oh, it's something I love. I mean, I use it all the time in client stuff too, where it's just like, even just come up with ideas. And it's funny how much more efficient something like ChatGPT 4.0 is way better than going to Google.
Yeah.
Because even though it's sort of coming from similar places,
Mhm.
it's giving you a much more direct answer, as long as you give it
It's
a
just
quality
so weird.
prompt.
Well,
But,
just think about,
Yeah. So
I mean, we could be a super economy. You think about, I remember Warren Buffett years ago used to say that we should have 4-day work weeks because it would allow consumers, which 70% of our economy is consumption, to get out and shop
to be
more.
consumers.
Yeah, to be
Well, that's
consumers.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
two, he says, it would
Thought
make
about
for a
that.
happier, society because we're only working 4 days a week instead of 7 or 5.
How do you choose to spend your day?
Yeah, and so it's like, if we can be more efficient, like Andrew is saying with AI, gosh, maybe we can free up another week of work.
But the problem is, you're going to have people that take advantage of that. Leaders are going to take advantage
Yeah.
of it and say, well, that used to take you all 40 hours. Now it took you 20. So
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out how to overload even more into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, some will do.
It's
that,
like,
for sure.
Some will do
you
that.
talk about like
Yeah.
the 4-day work week. I mean, that's such a big thing that's happening now.
Yeah.
Even my wife's school, I think, is talking about doing that, which I think is going to, like, schools might be the driver to actually kick that
Kick
off.
that off.
Because
Yeah.
parents are going to have to do something,
Something
with
with
kids.
their, yeah.
So
what do I do with my
somebody's-
child?
Yeah, we all
or-
forget that we're, people, and that we all share
Share
that.
that, yeah.
We like to
Oh,
think
yeah.
of people in like very arbitrary.
And another
know?
way we could kick that off would be having the stock market open only 4 days a week. Because right now we have to come in that 5th day because the market's open. So
That's
Yeah.
true, yeah.
Humans are so funny. Like we made all of this, and
I
at the
know.
same time we
Right.
act like we
We
can't
don't know how to
change
use
it.
it.
you can't
or-
change
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, these are steadfast things that have been here forever. Who am I to think that I can change this?
Yeah.
And it's like the bold people that think they can are the ones that actually make a difference.
Yeah.
Like,
I always say that it's funny how we've made society feel.
would you like some
I know,
water?
I'm sorry, we didn't
It's
ask
okay.
you all if you wanted water.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's
Like,
been a,
that's okay.
it's been a start.
That green paper, which we call money or
Yeah.
currency,
Here, I got it.
that green paper currency is, it's how we do things. But we've put this like ultimate, like this is it.
Yeah.
But it's just, green paper. And so just like we were saying that, that's how society works. We make you believe that, hey, this is what you need to be doing. And we kind of create this and then,
Yeah.
we're not happy with it.
Right. I mean, the whole AI thing, it's so funny because we, brand new sort of in the small business industry. So at our editor conference, we had a whole session on AI and how it could benefit
Sure. Would you like one?
Okay.
and how it could benefit small businesses. How could it make small businesses more efficient when they don't have time to hire a social media person or things like this. And
Do
so
you
that
use
was
AI at all?
a little bit, but
Yeah.
not a whole lot,
Not
not
really.
yet. I've actually been just advising my clients more on it than us applying
okay.
it to stuff
Yeah.
we're doing. But I came back from this conference and I'm asking my two boys, I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you guys think about AI? And I mean, here they are, on their phones or whatever when we were talking. I mean, I don't think I was cooking. I'm like, what do y'all think about AI? And my
Yeah.
son's like, it just wrote my term paper. I'm like, what? He's like, I wrote my term paper. And I was
Oh my
like,
gosh.
so you know how to use
Yeah.
it? He's like, Mom, I've been using it for the past 3 years. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Don't go, wherever your kid, Henry playing?
Oh,
Don't go back and look.
But we talked about that too. I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, well, this is what we do. And then we just get topics and term paper topics. And
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
but it helps. It's like, gives you ideas. And then you can
So
go back
that
and
was the
rewrite
thing
it.
with
And I was
Transylvania
like,
University.
what?
They worked with the students and faculty on how to use
That's
AI
what-
in an
that's what he's
appropriate
saying.
way.
Yeah. Because he didn't get in trouble. I mean, he can't. They did it the right way. But
Yeah, because you don't want it to
plagiarism and all that
right.
kind
You
of
don't want
stuff.
it to
Yeah.
do the work of what you're trying to ultimately provide, which is a dissertation or a research paper on a topic. But it can aid you in that, and so I think there's good ways to use AI.
Absolutely, which I was just taken aback. I was like, "What? You guys are already doing
Yeah.
it? Like you've already
Yeah.
got it on your phone? Like you already, like
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
And there are some things, I know when Elon Musk came out and said AI is what scares him. This was probably 5 years ago, and I was like, wow, if Elon Musk is scared of something,
Right.
is afraid of something, then
But is he though?
Yeah,
The guy
so I
that
think,
started it,
like-
named it.
And
Yeah.
telling people you're scared of it.
I think maybe if it's used in the wrong way, if we get it to a certain level, because it goes back to the whole sentient being, that if computers can reason, then they become human,
Right.
but they have all the information. Because I think one
That's
scientist
scary,
said
actually.
that he was doing the research. He said, it's kind of like this. If you say to AI, I want you to solve the environmental crisis, climate control. And if AI digs through and determines that it's humans that are the problem, and it says to solve it, do they eliminate humans? That's the kind of thinking that Elon Musk is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
But I guess when you lay it out that way, I guess you could do that.
Well, we talked about this, I think, in maybe the last one or previous to the last conversation about AI, which it really does just bring up the whole existential, what is the purpose of life,
Yeah.
Because it really does. It's like automation,
gosh.
if it's done by machines, well, that's the physical part. If
Yeah.
the intellectual part is taken care of
Yeah,
with
I
AI,
think so,
then
yeah.
what's our role here?
Right,
Are we
right.
just managers of this?
So I was
Like,
in a class at Wharton, and before we went into class, they kind of warned us about some of this conversation because it was a lot to do with AI. In particular, IBM was really developing Watson to be more emotional, the face and everything. And so the discussion around it was the moral and ethical issues we'll be facing. And one of my colleagues in the class said, I think we're going to be okay because computers wouldn't be able to really, it's our spiritual being, that third, that subconscious that we have in our
Yeah.
minds, that spiritual being that the computer doesn't have. And I
I'm curious if you could write that in somehow, though.
yeah.
Somebody's going to try.
That's
Someday.
creepy.
Yeah.
Kind of creepy.
I mean, I use it even for like a framework of something, It's like, why start from scratch if I could just say, hey, all right, I need a contract for X, Y, Z and put in certain
Yeah.
parameters and boom, there it is. And I can then go tweak it.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I know. It's crazy.
But
Well, that's
Yeah.
where you hope our human society is good.
Good.
Yeah.
we're going to
Well.
find out quickly.
Yeah, we are.
Well, we talked about this too, where it's like there's a lot of tough conversations on the table right now,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's through religion or healthcare or something else, and in a way that we've never had. And
Yeah.
it's all the conversations all at once.
Yeah.
And so it looks like we're in this free for all, like scary place, but I think it's good
Mhm.
because I think we're going to start seeing through lines of like,
Yeah.
oh, I feel this way about that topic, which now calls into question, can I also feel the opposite over
But I
here?
think that's what
No.
we did
And then
talk
you
about
find out
that.
more about
And
yourself.
we talked about how, there's so many good things that are coming out of social media too. Like my kids know so much more about money
Yeah.
They do.
They
And they're
do,
not learning
yeah.
it at school.
Right.
They're not. They're learning it on
Yeah.
TikTok. They're learning
Uh-huh.
it on these Instagram or these, channels, these social media channels, and
Mm-hmm.
from tips and things and influencers that are maybe money influencers or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're coming to me with questions I would have never come to my parents at 14. So I think that it is, I do think that parents really still need to balance that out and try to guide their kids best they can, but whatever. But it's like, but I do think that there's a lot of value.
That is, and you know what? I read that millennials, the biggest thing they invest in, the number one thing is cryptocurrency. So they're learning about the digital currency and its impacts. I mean, obviously, I think, because I do think at some point we'll just be a digital currency. I think paper money will
Like
go
a
away.
global digital?
Yeah, I really do.
Really?
I think the U.S., our monetary system, the U.S. dollar, can't stay the currency that is, the standard. Our population size,
Yeah.
other countries are much larger in population. Unfortunately for China, nobody trusts the Chinese currency. So, because, obviously that they could have a big
They
impact.
manipulate that all the time.
Yes. Yeah. So, people just don't trust it. But I do think that, like you said, kids learn about money and how that affects different economies through social media.
Yeah, I'm trying to foresee what does that transition even look like to start to adopt a global.
Well, the first thing would have to
Digital.
be like the Federal Reserve recognizing it.
Yeah.
And so that's what so many people want, is for the Federal Reserve to monetize and to recognize cryptocurrency and Bitcoin.
I don't hear much about it anymore.
Well, it's because of the
Yeah,
whole
I mean, right, the whole-
scandal
right.
with
What's his name?
FTX.
yeah,
Yeah.
FTX.
Oh,
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, and I think now that
What's his name? Sam Bankman-Fried.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
SBF.
So do you still have a lot of, do
I
you still
like
have
that
a
he
lot of
invented-
clients and new clients coming and talking about it and wanting?
We really don't. And we never engaged in cryptocurrency or Bitcoin with clients. That was just because we think of it as speculative,
Sure.
obviously.
I was going to say, do you think that that's just like a flash in the pan situation? Do you think that you're vulnerable because you didn't, and there could be real teeth there?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because typically, like even when CBD and these THC, when marijuana became legal in so many states and Canada, people wanted to start investing in those stocks. And I always tell people, we will invest when we feel that there is a fundamental value in that company.
Not just trendy.
Right. And so, when the United States hasn't, technically it's not legal in our country, it's legal in certain states.
Right.
So, it's hard to invest and to find value there. Same thing with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I do think eventually that we will have a digital currency. I don't know if it's going to be Bitcoin or Coinbase or whatever. I think it will be a digital currency, and when that starts to move through a legitimate, what I would consider legitimate, people would just want to smack me for saying that right now, especially the ones that started that. That
That's
it's
true.
legitimate, then in the minds of like a monetary
Right.
system, then I think that's what's going to be the point where we might invest in it as a
Yeah.
position. We typically are pretty mindful investors. We like those companies that pay us while we hold them. So we like to buy dividend stocks. So we would be a while before we would invest in something like that, because typically those type of companies aren't going to have solid earnings and
Right.
be able to pay a dividend.
Yeah.
It's kind of like gold. A lot of people want to invest in gold, especially when inflation's around. Gold tends to do well when we have high inflation. But gold to me is, a commodity that we're putting a value on psychologically, because it doesn't have earnings. It's not
Interesting.
creating new products.
I was going to say,
It's not going to merge with
things used to
copper
be
and
made
form this
out of it,
other great,
and we don't care.
Yeah.
We got
so the-
plastic now. So
Right.
yeah.
It does. People make
Yeah.
jewelry with it, but
Yeah.
but it's really more of an inflationary hedge, and to me, you really have to buy a lot of it to have a real impact in your portfolio. So I'm not a big gold investor, and again, there would be investors out there that would be like,
They're crazy.
yeah, you're crazy. So there's different ways
But-
to invest, of
But
course.
it's different strategy,
It is, but that's kind of, so I think at some point, if a digital coin were to be in place and you could make an investment in it, you can invest in the U.S. currency right now. You can trade currencies. You can, there's a market to trade currencies and bet against currencies.
It's so weird to me.
Yeah, the dollar versus the yen, or the dollar.
Yeah.
Do you
versus
think,
other
like, at some point, going back to the mergers, acquisitions conversation, I think it kind of goes with that. Do you think there's a point where humans have to come to be like, listen, this arbitrage idea of buying something low and selling high, we're going to have to reel this in together? Because literally everything,
Yeah.
and stop doing it. Because, like, M&A, again, some of the people that get left behind, many of the people that get left behind, they get fired. And they're like, I've been here for 20 years. And it's like, well, we just got acquired and you're right.
Good. Yeah.
So, like, that example lacked the soft sort of awareness that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
We do the same sort of thing. Like, if somebody was buying a company to then flip it basically for a profit, we're doing the same thing, like you're saying, with the dollar, right?
Right.
You go and you flip that for a profit. We go over here to buy these sneakers off StockX, and we put it on Facebook Marketplace, and we flip it for $1. It's literally the same behavior.
Yeah. So now you're getting into more of, in my mind, like capitalism versus other. Yeah.
It's which, because again, it's like at the end of the day, for many of these kind of flip ventures, there are people at the end of that.
Yeah.
And it's just not, like, ethically and
Right.
morally, that's just not cool.
No, I see what you're saying.
No other way to say that, but it's just not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times are you going to flip a company, for example, to keep I think about my mom's job. She works for what used to be known as Shakespeare. I don't know if you're into fishing, but they make, like, the ugly stick. She's responsible for bringing in all the monofilament for her company, which is like all the fishing tack and the fishing line. Like, that all comes in the country because of her.
Wow.
She's been sold probably 20 times in the last 10 years. Rubbermaid bought them at one point, and all these, like, arbitrary, like, some German company comes in for a minute. They can people. They keep her because she's important. They fire everybody else.
Yeah.
And, like, the whole time she's sitting there trying to figure out, like, well, what's our new workflow? Well, just in time to get sold again. And it's like, that's exhausting.
Well,
It is.
And it's like,
strategy of that,
it's
too,
positioning
Sometimes at
employees
some point-
against leaders. And, like, there's this, it's almost classist, where there's, like, the people in control of the businesses get to do whatever they want and play a game with the people that are working inside the business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
does
Like,
that make it hard too for you guys to advise on certain businesses that are constantly being sold? Do you just kind of keep people?
Sorry,
away
I'm
from
stuck
it?
on that. By
No,
the way, but
no,
that's
that's
just like
okay.
it seems to
And
be a theme this week for me.
I want Andrew to chime in on that too, because I think maybe different generations feel differently about that because of different careers, different social aspects. Growing up in a capitalist society versus a socialist society, there might be benefits to both. Because I think, as a matter of fact, I think UBS, who took over Credit Suisse, Credit Suisse Bank.
I'm not familiar. Okay.
So Credit Suisse is a very large bank, of course, during the the bank crisis in March. Didn't necessarily fail, but they weren't looking good. And UBS, United Bank of Switzerland, came in and bought them and took over the bank. And today announced that they're probably going to get rid of half of the workforce at Credit Suisse.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And so it even goes on in large banks, not just, other companies. But I think, it's hard to say, because I'm big on free markets and capitalists, but certainly, I'm also the person that wants everybody to be able to advance their career, grow, and develop professionally and personally. So it's hard, because I think what you would hope as those acquisitions are taking place, that it's because of efficiencies. And if we can become more efficient, does that mean that person loses a job? No, but they may have to get trained in a different area. Just like, we can look at Kentucky and the coal mines and the, different sources of energy. And, we try to retrain. So I think it does help us grow as individuals. Unfortunately, some people don't want to move in that direction, and they find themselves forced to.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you would feel about that.
I think I'm similar. I don't think there's a perfect system, and because there's no perfect people. And so every system's going to have its kind of things we have to wrestle with.
Yeah.
But I'm very capitalistic minded as well, just because, if you look at it, some of those people that got laid off, while that is a horrible thing for them to happen, some of them may have gone and started businesses and been able to, push them to do things that they never thought that they could do themselves.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that's too much of an optimistic view of it. But I do think that there's
honestly, I think that's how we try to justify it being okay.
Well,
you know what I mean?
No, and I'm not saying
it's going to give them a reason to go be themselves.
And I'm not saying that's the primary
there's
reason.
a kid at home that's got to eat at the end of the day.
But I think you're right. I think,
but
those things happen because of inefficiencies. It's back to what you said, though. I mean, businesses are not there to lose money.
Right. But also, too, here's the other, we were having a discussion with a young group of people, and, I think there are different generations that think, more socialist views. I don't know that they've really captured exactly how they think it would work. But because some of it you think about, they think that, we're all going to be here. But in the reality of it is that we're all not going to live this way. We're all going to step down, and it's going to be much more trying environment, because I do believe innovation wouldn't be there if you're not having these type of movements in the markets.
What I love about all of what we've been talking about for an hour is it's all kind of the same.
Yeah.
Where it's like, in a political standpoint, you got the two extremes. But if we look at it, we're largely in the middle, because we can go, there's parts of that not practical, or over here, whatever, right? Same thing here, where it's like, there's always going to be bad players, bad people in certain things. There's bad capitalism and there's good. There's bad socialism and there's parts that make sense, and at the end of the day, it's like, just don't be a jerk. I think that's what we're kind of learning about each other.
I love what you said when you said, because people aren't perfect.
Right.
There's no perfect system because people.
Because if we were morally and ethically bound to each other and wanted the best for each other all the time, each individual on this earth, things would be a lot different. But
that's exactly
because I think and I just love having these discussions, because I think what you said, it goes back to how you articulate those things. Because if we had leaders in our country, especially in government, that can articulate and people to hear that, I think we would have a better, we wouldn't be as divisive. We would be looking for opportunities to help in areas like immigration, or so that everybody can have health care. But when it's articulated in ways that, or information is gathered in ways, I think it can be detrimental too.
Yeah. Oh, well, in the political part, it's like, we have these strange overlapping election periods of 6 years for a senator, 2 for, we never get we never get a period of time where, when somebody says, we're going to do a thing, that we're going to allow it to play out to see if that actually comes to fruition, We're constantly at oh no, we got to do it this way, and we never settle on a plan.
Well, I've always said term limits are the destruction, and they will be the destruction of our society. Term limits.
I was expecting you to say the opposite, honestly.
No,
okay.
See, so because I do believe that we're bringing leaders in, whether they be congressional leaders or our president. We're bringing leaders in, and it seems like a position of power and wealth, and they continue to move in that direction. And it's interesting because, I know we have, a senator here in our state that wanted term limits and said, that's what I'm going to run on. And it just doesn't happen. And I'm not necessarily begrudging that particular senator. It happens with all of them. You got to have some continuity. So there's got to be some term, whether it be 10 years, maybe it needs to be a little longer, but then they're done.
Well, again, it's reeling it in though, right? Because the reason that conversation happens, we need term limits as well, so that we don't get people that are just here forever.
Right.
And in maximum control of, a Senate majority leader who gets to decide, are we even going to call this to a vote or not?
Exactly, yeah.
Why would one person get a choice of whether the entire country even gets to get heard on this topic? change some of these rules
Yeah.
and still allow people to be voted in
Yeah.
for as long as we decide they should be there. You
Right.
know?
So then, and it gets into the whole constitutional debate.
Right.
Should
Yeah,
we be changing
it's
the
hard.
Constitution? It's many years old.
Yeah.
And it is. It's an interesting conversation to have, though.
It's so layered, like all
Yeah.
of this stuff. you
But
know?
but what you're saying, I think it has an impact on so many things that we've discussed today, too, whether it be education or the
What are you
markets.
doing, Lance? Sorry, go ahead.
So whether it be
Yeah.
the education or the market. So I just think it's good. Hey, it
Yeah.
should be a podcast.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Now, I love talking about this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I like trying to solve
Yeah.
it. I know there's really no
Well, there's no solving
particular
it.
solving it,
Right.
but I like the puzzle piecing.
But it's
of
just
it,
interesting
you know?
how it's all related to everything's all relatable, right?
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
The industries, the backgrounds, the topics. I mean, it's all.
Yeah. I mean, what
it's
happens?
touching everybody,
Yeah. I mean,
and
like,
we are all in control of it, and we act like we don't know what to do with all this stuff, and it's like,
Right.
just do
Yeah.
with it what's be as efficient as
but
you
that's
can.
what I.
Yeah.
That's what I think social is going to end up doing, is allowing us to at least agree on certain things, and be like, okay, listen, capitalism and being very strict to it is great when you have people that don't like to follow rules, or
Yeah.
socialism and moving in that direction is great when you have people that are too hell-bent about rules and not emotional and like nice enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're like, we're totally out of control, we can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
But we know that somewhere in between is like probably the right balance, because
Yeah.
you still need that incentive to innovate and do these things,
Right.
but at the same and not get things handed to you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we can't just leave people behind morally and ethically
Right.
because they, circumstances maybe didn't allow them to have enough resources to be able to be involved with investing or something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And there's some ways, like with Social Security and Medicare, I mean, those are really more socialist kind of programs. And maybe we need, a balance. I think it is. It's just all up, like you said, we got to meet somewhere in the middle
Yeah.
between both, so that we can still have the innovation and the growth and, be rewarded for that. But
Yeah.
yet, like you said, don't leave people behind that maybe don't have that first step up. That
It's just like a big. I hope we get to a point where we have enough humility as a group, as a country, as a world, really, for how we're acting. Like,
Yeah.
because so much of this is driven by, I already know, I'm comfortable with the world through the filter and the lens that I get to see it. I don't have to relearn how to think about topics,
Yeah.
Right.
But what's actually going to drive us forward in a positive way is being humble enough to say, I don't know everything.
Right.
And what I knew to be true might not actually be like how I feel today,
Well,
just because
and
I'm still
to that-
acting off of 20 years ago when I learned something or
And to
whatever.
that point, like, are you also, I mean, you guys are more than just, I feel like you're almost counselors in a way,
Very much.
Very much so. I mean, you get to really meet everybody's family members and you're advising them, like even this technology, I'm sure you have lots of conversations on
Oh,
all the time with your clients. And
all the time.
because are you seeing them wanting to invest in certain things and that, and then it's hard because then
What
you're
a
like, well, I
transition.
don't
That
see
was
that.
great.
No,
I
no,
don't see
no.
that as a benefit to how we do business, or how is it hard for you to
Right.
advise things on some of this technology investment stuff when you may
Yeah.
not even really get it or apply it yourselves? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sometimes it's gotta be kinda hard.
it is, and I think too. I mean, we have certain clients that don't want to invest in companies because of the practices of those companies. And
Sure.
then there's the whole environmental, social governance, ESG investing. So we do run into that quite a bit. One of the biggest things for me, I always put my hat on as a psychologist when I meet with clients,
Yeah, that's
because money is when you think about money, it creates a lot
Well,
of
it's a big-
stress
yeah.
in relationships,
Absolutely.
in family relationships, and spouses, and so for me, it's interesting, like the things that you learn. One example, I'm still collecting the data, and there's never going to be a right answer, is how parents help their children financially.
Yeah, could you tell me? I mean, you figured that out. I'd love to know.
Because
I feel like I'm creating a
we run
monster
into
right now.
situations.
I'm trying not to.
We run into situations and we tell our clients, you need to take care of yourself first. how long are you going to?
That's great advice.
Yeah, it
'Cause
really
we all
is.
just feel like I said, I'm like,
And it's hard,
Yeah,
but
I give up
then
right now
as a
and help you
mom,
right
you
now.
don't want to see your child struggle.
right.
And it's like,
It's like
oh,
put your mask on first before you help the person next to you in the
exactly.
plane.
And
Yeah.
I've tried, like, over the years, I've tried to watch how parents do that. And there's some that fail badly because, they've just done too much. And it's not only hurt their own portfolios and what their retirement, they're having to extend when they're going to retire, or maybe not purchase a certain house or what have you, but it's also hurt the child, like, understand, like,
Where it all came from.
where it all came from.
How to do it themselves.
So I did have one client that I thought, I really like what he's saying. He said he just wanted to make his children 25% better, and he be in a zone of okay. You're not going to be at the top, you're not going to be at the bottom, but just be in that zone of okay. And he also, in the family meeting, gave a kind of a history of how he got to where he was. And it was kind of eye-opening to his daughter. She was like, "Oh, you were fired? Almost got fired?"
And see, kids
And he
don't
was
appreciate those
and he
stories.
was
Don't
a
know that.
high-performing
Yeah.
executive, and I didn't know that,
Yeah.
and what they had to go through. And then, they had a health concerns in their family as they grew. So it's really interesting. I think that was one of the biggest eye-openers for me, because he has well-adjusted kids. Not to say that they didn't have their struggles,
Right.
but
Right.
it's just, there's no perfect answer, and emotion has a lot to do with it, and that's why we do
Oh,
have
yeah.
our psychological
I was
therapist
gonna
hat
say,
on.
I've got a 5.5-year-old now, a 9-month-old, and that's one of the things I think about is like
Yeah.
balancing the practical and the emotional, because it's
Yeah.
like there's the emotional part, which is like, okay, you're 5.5 and you're walking through Target, and of course you see ninjas or something, and you're like,
Yeah.
I want to buy this toy, and it's like,
throw it
Yeah.
It's just-
Yeah.
like emotionally you want to just say like, yeah, you're a kid, like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, you
Yeah.
shouldn't have the baggage of
Yeah.
and responsibility
And you
of
see
making
how happy
money.
they are holding it, and you just want to make them happy. And
Yeah. But then there's the practical part, which is like, can I turn that into are we good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's like, is there a way to turn this into a practical learning moment?
Yeah.
I saw something on TikTok
And there
where
is a
somebody,
balance about that.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
And somebody was like, who was it? I really don't like this guy, but Grant Cardone was talking about, I don't know why he popped up.
He comes up
But
on my
he-
Insta. I don't
Yeah.
know what I've gotten into that he
Everybody
comes up on
pops
mine.
out.
But he said something, and who knows how true it is, but like working with his children, saying like they're at a restaurant and whatever, the bill comes, and uses that chance to say like, hey, how do you think the service was? Like thinking in those terms. What do you think the food, and like, how did you think about all of these things?
Yeah.
And then what do you think a tip, a responsible tip could be is part of that and helping. I think the kids were old enough to where they could even help with the math part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
But like helping to think these like practical, you
Yeah.
think of them as
Yeah.
adult things, but kids have an idea. Like, do you think that guy was
Yeah.
nice, or was the food good? Was your soup hot? Like, you know what I
Sometimes
mean?
I don't want to
You
get
Yeah.
could you could
involved,
think about that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true. But I did.
Where's that line, right?
Yeah, I did.
Is it worth
a
doing?
course I took. I was shocked to hear that it's between ages 7 and 13 that kids learn the most about money.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I think you did tell me this. I think
Yeah.
we talked about this at either your other podcast or at the
it
office.
might have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
Because
Which I found that fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Like
What-
you learn your habits.
Yeah,
right?
you learn your habits, your money habits,
Why?
between ages 7 and 13.
Are they just aware now, or
I don't know. It didn't really give a lot of information as to what the development was.
It wouldn't.
Maybe.
Yeah, just like it never gives us the
right?
data.
They just tell
That would
you,
be
and you
silly.
gotta accept
But
it,
like
right?
parents, like
Hey,
maybe if
it was
if you
part
had
of
an
my
allowance,
coursework, and I didn't want to
you
get the
know?
question wrong, so I was accepting
Yeah,
it.
whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Were they? I told you they tell us everything.
Yeah.
But it's probably like did you, like I just said, like maybe parents, did you have an allowance? Things from 7 to
Yeah,
13,
that's.
like,
I think those are
Yeah.
some of the things they even talk
Were you throwing
about.
the ninjas in the cart?
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
7 to 13.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, as experts, like, what would pretend you're giving me some ideas, not advice, strategy, whatever we got to say there,
Not
right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
like,
Use the word strategy.
like, what are some things that could actually help, say, a 6-year-old start to appreciate money, or like start
Yeah.
an early journey for thinking responsibly?
Yeah.
Like tips.
Like saving, do you say like, hey, you got $20 for your, from grandma for randomly, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's put a few bucks in your
Piggy bank.
in your piggy bank, and let's spend the rest. Or like,
And that's
how
a
do you
hard
do you
conversation
start those?
to have with a young person when you say, hey, honey, I know I usually give you presents that you unwrap for your birthday, but today I'm going to give you money and it's going into this college savings account. That's a tough discussion because kids want instant gratification, and that's not instant by any means. But, for me, and we don't deal a lot with young savers and doing that, but I always go back to the piggy bank. The piggy bank to me, it's that old antiquated thing that we always saw, and whether it's a piggy bank or a jar, I think showing and one experience I had with a friend who was parenting was when the child would put money in, they would match it. So it was kind of like,
That's a good idea.
yeah.
Like
So,
401k.
yeah, that's right. It's kind of like, but they also could see the effect of savings. My money's compounding.
I was just gonna say,
so you put a quarter in,
interest
I'll put a quarter in.
compounding.
So it's
That's
that
great.
compounding effect.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I
That's
think
cool.
because it's visual, and I think it needs to be more tactile for younger kids, because when you just put a piece of paper and like, this is a Disney stock share,
Yeah.
I think that's different. But I think that's one of the big things is to be more tactile and visual for young savers to show them what that means, and then let them understand what that money can do for them.
Yeah.
It can buy, if they go to the grocery, it can buy the lifesavers or whatever their favorite.
Yeah, we
candy
have
is.
that sort of, and I don't know developmentally if it's, just, I think it makes sense.
But there's always an
where,
incentive. I think incentives, it's like something like learning and like the compounding, like if you match it, teaching them like you'll have instead of $4, you have $8.
Yeah.
Right.
And like my dad, my boy's grandfather, he told them when they turned 16, like he would match whatever they saved up to $2,500 for like their first car, which I appreciated. I was like, great,
That's good.
and or they could apply it to a car, right? And because he did it for my brother, and my dad thought he was not gonna do very much, and my brother like saved up like $6,000, like my dad was like, wait, matching it, So now he was gonna match it. He was going to match it because he did for my brother. Now it's a maximum of $2,500 because my brother saved up $6,000 and my dad had to match $6,000. So it's
Yeah,
so now with the grandkids,
like,
that's how it went. So
that's
now
real
it's
compounding.
and because he didn't think my brother would save up his money,
Yeah.
And my dad was like, wow, you actually. It's
That's
pretty
cool.
impressive.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, it's like those incentives and just understanding. Like my brother's like, I'll have double whatever I save.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And he took it seriously.
And I think that we also talk about, and I've said this before to you, that save, spend, invest, and give, and just having that kind of save first. I always tell people, because people say all the time, I can't save because I've got. Well, we learn to live on what's left, so save first, and then you can spend because
It's a great saying.
And then the investing part is always getting your money to work for you. So when you go to work, your money gets dressed and goes to work with you.
Yeah.
So it's earning for you, and then the giving is just that whole goes back to being that person, having that humility and having grace to. Hey, if I want to give because I want to share in the wealth that I've had.
That's great.
Success.
Off this or whatever this is.
I don't know if you have any tips, because actually he might have some tips, because I know he has done well for himself at a young age, and as far as saving and investing.
And I think my parents did a really good job of kind of that balance of not really giving me handouts, but still like letting me struggle enough that I still wanted to push myself, but also being there and being supportive when I needed the help. And so I know back when I was probably middle school age, they were putting into a 529 account for me. And they told me back then, they were like, this is your money. You can use it for college. But if you go out and get scholarships, it's still your money. Even if you don't use any of it, you can buy a house, buy a car, buy whatever you want. So it kind of gave me a goal to look at for the future of, my high school years matter, my grades matter.
But did you see them have or hear them have conversations about money at home as well?
I did.
Because like
Yeah.
a 529, you could do this in
Right.
18 years. Like, okay, what does that mean to me? But if it's being reinforced
Right.
constantly through conversation and examples,
And I
that's
definitely
helpful, right?
heard them have conversations about money at home. I also think I have some of my grandfather's genetics. He was a depression kid, and so he saved everything, like whether it was canned food, leftovers, and it was a hoarding house. But it was a great thing because he was a great saver, even with money. And I would watch him at different stores, and when my brother and I would ask for things, he would explain, why we're not going to get that or why we will get that, and it trickled down to my dad, and it's trickled down to us as well. And so just having that appreciation.
That's great.
It's interesting what Andrew just said. He said in middle school, so that would be the age
that's
7
the
through
age.
13.
Yeah.
But the other big thing, and what I found is people do talk more about money today. Then, when my parents were growing up, that was taboo. You didn't talk to your kids about
about
money.
everything.
Now kids see their parents, investing or buying, rental properties or Airbnbs and investing in those and hearing the discussion about it. And they see them, doing the checkbook, or actually now it's really on the phone. So I think
checking their app.
Yeah,
Books.
I think now it's more discussed because even our clients, I found, that subset of clients that maybe grew up in a generation where they didn't talk about money. Their kids are not involved in their plan. They, they're going to get inheritance, but it's going to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's a subset of clients that want their kids to come to the meetings and learn how they have put value
This is
on
where
money.
this came from.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
And so you can compound it.
Right, right.
You become a part of it.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
values, why we make decisions that we make, and maybe why we're given to charities, because here's what our values are around money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have friends my age that I can tell, we're just given like the job,
Yeah.
or just given the house, or just
Yes,
given
yeah.
the cars. And the work ethic is very different.
Different.
There's a lot of differences. You see
Yeah.
it even in adulthood once you become adults.
Absolutely.
And that trickles down too.
Right.
So yeah, it's
And just even the way, like, my parents spend their money. Like,
Right.
they don't, my dad has a great job, and he could go upgrade his vehicle and buy all these, nice things for himself, but even instead, drive the old beater for
Right.
until it breaks down. And
If it's not broke, don't
if
fix
it's not
it.
broke,
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
fix
yeah.
it. And he still orders, water at every restaurant, puts the lemon in the, sweetener in it to make lemonade and those kind of things. And he's well past that period in his life where he needed to do that.
you can get yourself a lemonade.
Right.
So you're just not going to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to pay $3 for that.
For a lemon, right,
For
yeah.
the lemon. And so
So
just
funny.
even things like that of just seeing them live it out, not just telling me to, you need to save for your future, them actually doing the work themselves of saving and being frugal, even when they living well below their means.
Yeah.
You're going to have to
that
stop
they
getting
have-
lattes. Don't let your kids see it.
Right?
No, but this
True.
is to round it all up before we finish. It's like that's the great thing I think about social. Again, it's kids are getting education that's supplemented from what the parents don't know
Yeah.
or think maybe they shouldn't be exposed to yet. And they're seeing it. They're getting educated and seeing all of that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, actually.
I do too. But one thing I also, kids are being, I don't want to use the word attacked, but bombarded with ads all the time.
Oh,
which,
yeah.
in my day, it was more if I saw, a store or a billboard or, magazine, it wasn't right in front of me every single day. And so that's
kind of choose to pick it up. And look
yeah.
at it.
So that is going to be interesting to see, what spending and saving habits will be like for that generation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. I see them already differently with my 18-year-old and my 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Like my 18-year-old kind of thinks money grows on trees. And I guess that's my fault. I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know. Because I feel like I was a little more lenient with him than I have been. I don't know. But he's
You
different.
probably
He's
parent
just
differently when
different.
different.
And then I can already say with my 14-year-old, my 14-year-old's kind of like, I'm not ordering a $3 lemonade.
Right.
And my oldest order 4.
Yeah. But and the other
And I'm
thing
like,
too is they make it
that's
so
ridiculous.
easy now. Like Amazon, you just swipe right. I got that.
Right.
They make it so easy to
They
They're in
purchase
so
items.
much trouble for that now, by the way. There's
Yeah, I
there's
did see that.
something like that.
Yeah, I did
Oh,
see
there
that.
is?
Well,
Yeah, the
actually, I
Attorney
think it's
General.
like getting people into Prime
Because like
memberships
2-year-olds
is
are
the
buying
problem.
couches
Right.
by accident.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not. Oh,
Well, yeah, with the buy now button instead of just adding to cart, buy now.
Yeah, that's the
Wow.
one I'm talking about. You just
Yeah,
buy now,
yeah,
swipe
it's
right.
crazy.
It is.
We can keep
Thank
going,
you,
but I think
guys.
we've been
No.
here for 2 hours.
No.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you all.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Lexington Business Show. Go right now, rate and review the podcast. It's how we grow and thrive and how we get more listeners and get to do a lot more cool stuff here on the show. Thank you.